It's been a summer of serious change for the Sydney Comets, with homegrown talent moving on and some of the best players from around NBL1 East taking their talents to Alexandria. For the women's side, the Miles bench revolution reaches year 2 with plenty of young talent given the chance to star. Meanwhile, for the men, their squad is looking really well balanced, with the potential of being extremely deadly. It's time to take off to the stratosphere with the Comets. This is their 2026 NBL1 East preseason update. Welcome to Waratah on VCR. All right, let's get straight into it with some of the big losses on the men's side. Barba-Bey-A gone. Anthony Mundine III off to Bankstown, and Dave O'Hickey most likely, I'd say 99.95%, not going to return. So these are 3 high-powered players to lose in just one off-season. So let's take a look at who the Comets have brought in to restore their lineup. First of all, we've got one of my favourite players, sorry to play bias, but it is Ramon Cao.A. Previously with the Inner West Bulls, Cao.A has one of the smoothest, prettiest games in the country. He can bomb away from the three-point line, get you high percentage shots from backdowns and turnarounds, and just has that length to finish around the basket as well. From that isolation, from that triple threat position, or in the catch and shoot, he can really fill it up. Cao.A grew up playing junior reps in Sydney before moving to the United States for JUCO. He then went on to play NCAA at Florida College, where he played 3 seasons and graduated in 2023. He then returned to Sydney from college playing for the Bulls, but at the same time was also playing for Hong Kong Eastern in the NBL1 East off-season. In Season 1 with the Bulls, he averaged 14 points and 6 boards off a smooth 50% shooting. Then last season, managed to notch that up to 16 points per game to go along with 5 rebounds per game, and an impressive 44% shooting from the three-point line. So with Cao.A right out of the gates, the Comets have recovered some of that scoring punch, and a reliable scorer at that. So with Raymond locked in, the Comets went out and signed 2 huge imports, starting with a guard. It is Ahmed Barba-Bey, a dynamic combo scoring guard who you got to think will be their first option on offense. Originally from Piscataway, I don't know if I said that right. It's in New Jersey, which, fun fact, is where Karl-Anthony Towns grew up. And much like Karl-Anthony Towns, Ahmed is a great shooter. He gets a lot of lift on his jump shot and is super effective on that 1 or 2 dribble pull-up. He really attacks off those first dribbles, can elevate, swish. He's got a really good game and a kind of dying game. Those 1 or 2 dribble pull-ups I think can be very effective if you can make a high percentage out of it. But I think from the looks of Ahmed Barba-Bey, he can really do that. Also, from looking at his highlights, he's a really willing passer, especially when drawing in defensive attention and dishing off to teammates. So he looks unselfish as well, meaning he probably could slot into the point guard position. We'll see how the rest of the roster shapes up, but wouldn't be surprised to see him at the 1 or the 2, or even sliding into the 3 if they want to go for a slightly smaller lineup. He went to college at Fairleigh Dickinson Uni. At this time, he scored 1,000 points, and in fact, in his final season at that university, set a scoring record for most points against an ACC opponent with a career-high 31 points against Boston College. In his senior year, he shot 40% from the field, which means although he does take a lot of those mid-range jumpers, he is making them. So Barba-Bey is big, especially considering the talent they have to replace this offseason. He's going to pick up a lot of the slack that Barba-Bey and Mundine left on the perimeter. But let's move into the paint for their second import signing. It is, of course, Akil Douglas, which NBL1 East fans will be very familiar with after bursting onto the scene last year with the Hornsby Ku-ring-gai Spiders, where he averaged 17 points and 5 rebounds and was instrumental in, I think it was a 5-game winning streak the Spiders went on in about the third quarter of the season. That was when Akil Douglas and Ramon Cao.A were really tearing it up. But Douglas did miss the start of the season with a few niggling injuries, so it was really good to see him burst onto the scene, and he's a huge pickup for the Sydney Comets. What stands out immediately with Akil is he is super long, but also very versatile with his skill set. I mean, that wingspan's really huge, but he can handle the ball like a guard. And in that ISO situation, he can be really effective at just breaking someone down, then using that height to either power over a defender or just shoot it up. His basketball journey is also super interesting. Originally from San Jose, California, he spent 2 years at JUCO, then spent 2 years in NCAA. In that time, In that time in JUCO and college, he impressed enough to be drafted in the NBA G League draft, the 2018 NBA G League draft, which I'm sure we all remember. He was a second-round pick for the OKC Blue. He didn't end up playing in the G League, instead going overseas to play professionally in countries like Brazil, Portugal, and Mexico. In that time, he also had a stint in the TBL, or the Basketball League, a semi-pro American league, which people might remember that former Bull and Hornet Chris Bryant used to play in. Big thing for him is going to be staying out of foul trouble. I think he got caught up a bit too much trying to go for those big swats with that long reach and maybe getting caught out a bit. But that's what happens sometimes with imports, getting used to the different styles, the different style of reffing as well in the NBL1 East and in Australia. But I think with a year under his belt, he's going to be more used to what the referees are going to be calling. But also what's super scary about Akil joining the Sydney Comets is he will be teaming up with Johnny Sinagorat, and immediately they have created the longest, tallest front court in the league, potentially in the nation. This is a scary combination defensively, especially on that tiny Comets court. They will be a great defensive side, but we'll get back to the defense a little later in the video. Offensively, luckily, Johnny and Akil can both stretch the floor with shooting, as well as get into the paint and do the dirty work on both sides. So you got to think either be Johnny or Akil taking turns in the paint offensively. That gives you a lot of good looks. So great to have two bigs. Normally you only get one big who does this, but two bigs who can stretch the floor. Just got to interject quite quickly here. As I was recording this video, Sydney Comets did announce that Christian Okuzo is back for another season, which I am over the moon to see. Was down with injury last season, but Christian is a superstar in the making. I'll tell you what, his combination of size, strength, and skill is really going to turn him into a star going forward. I mean, the guy's 6'8", so I think can play the 4 or the 5 position. Last time we saw him in NBL1 was in 2024, where he averaged 11 points, 7 rebounds, and did that off 61% field goal percentage. So that just goes to show, not just from the eye test, that Christian Okuzo is a absolute gun in the making. Statistically as well, he's really proving himself. He's got a really strong play style, can get down in the paint and bang, he can really cause some damage down there. Don't let that size and strength deceive you, because he also has a really soft touch around the ring. Former New South Wales representative, was an under-20s champion, long-term Comets player as well. So you love to see it. Just returned from JUCO though, so I'm not quite sure what the situation is there, whether he's just going to play a bit of NBL1, then go back to JUCO, or whether he's come back to Sydney for sure. It'll be interesting to see how he fits in this bigs rotation, but I think between those 4 bigs with Okuzo, Martin Coney, Akil Douglas, and Johnny, you have so much versatility and so many different looks that you can throw out. Anyway, I told you we'd get back to the defensive end, and the Comets have gone out and re-signed 2 of the best defenders in the league. And that's not an exaggeration, they really are. Chol Adup and Viliami Feketi will be back for another year with the Sydney Comets. Chol is simply relentless, never takes a possession off, and is the definition of a D-dog, barking and all. He causes a lot of headaches for the opposition, demoralising them with disrupting defence. Well, that's a bit of a tongue twister, but just putting them out of their flow with that full court pressure, winding down time on the shot clock, but just getting under the skin of guards a lot of the time. It's not just the guards though. Chol can defend pretty much through 1 to 5, which is what makes him so important for the Sydney Comets side, and the versatile style that they like to play. Chol also helps out on the other end. He's a super reliable knockdown shooter. In an isolation situation as well, he can go get his buckets using that big frame to back down and bully his way to the basket. Or, again, he can just camp out on the three-point line and has that quick trigger motion, especially effective from the corners. Pretty much everything I said about Chol applies to Feketi as well. He is really the type of player that could fit on any roster. For years now, has just been the perfect teammate on whatever squad he's been a part of. This year, I would love to see Viliami Feketi shoot a little more. I mean, he does have a killer shot, and it's really pretty as well. It gets a great arc on it, and it's super reliable as well. The motion from top to bottom is so efficient. He might see a little more scoring opportunities this year. We'll see how the offense kind of comes together, because there's a lot of new players to kind of fit in. But that's the great thing about Vili. He can either take every possession and take every shot, or he can be a great teammate and look for passes, space the floor, make well-timed cuts, and hustle for second chance buckets as well. This will be Viliami Feketi's 8th season in NBL1, or the equivalent level. He debuted for Penrith originally, then moved up to Mackay for 2 seasons where he was part of the NBL1 North Championship side. He then moved to Darwin in 2023 where he played alongside Chola, so there you go. He then returned to Sydney playing a season for the Inner West Bulls before ending up with the Comets last year. So let's now have a look at the Comets depth chart. Huge shout out to Isaac Gundy. He's also been announced as coming back this season. Gundy played his youth league and Waratah career with the Blacktown Storm and managed to parlay that into a spot in NBL1 last season with the Sydney Comets. He is a pure point guard who I wouldn't be surprised to see get a couple of starts this year. He is very, very solid both defensively and offensively. After all, he is the only kind of pure point guard on this roster. So I think for Isaac Gundy, didn't have a huge role last year. It was kind of just your backup point guard, maybe even your third choice guard off the bench. But I think this year is going to be a big year for Isaac with an elevated role on this team. But for now, I've put Barba-Bey at the point guard position. And looking at the wings, we've got Ramon Cao.A and Chola starting on the wings. But you could easily see someone like Fiketti jump into that starting lineup as well. I think that's the beauty of the Comets roster at the moment. Got a lot of starting quality players, and looking at their depth, there's heaps of people there who can really contribute and give you a lot from off the bench or starting. Another guy who I also think will be getting big minutes is new signing Maxim Nesterov. He was a big part of the Seagulls rotation back in NBL1 2023. He even dropped 23 points in a game against the Central Coast. But that season was pretty much the high watermark for him at Manly because the following 2 seasons, his minutes fell. I think that's due to a bit of competition for the spots, a lot of wings coming from other clubs in and even juniors coming up through the Manly system. But he didn't lose his minutes because of a lack of quality. Nesterov is a dead-eye shooter. In last season alone, he recorded 45% shooting from three-point range across 11 appearances. So he'll provide a lot of floor spacing for the Comets, which I think they really need at the moment. I mean, you've got a lot of high-powered scorers and slashers and a lot of bigs in that front court. But I think having Nesterov as that spot-up shooter in the corners or being able to rotate around and cut off the ball will really space things out for the Comets, and I think he can be really effective in this lineup. Moving into the front court, you've got Johnny and Akil locked down. You've got to think those will be the starters. But I think there's a young gun off the bench who could challenge for that starting spot. Regardless, he'll be a huge part of the rotation. Of course, I'm talking about Ethan Martin-Coney. And this kid's going to be a big deal. If you don't know him by now, you got to take notes and try to get out and watch one of his games. He's been a Comet his whole junior career and also represented New South Wales in that time. Most recently, he was a part of that under-20 squad that won gold medal at the National Championship. In that competition, Martin-Coney averaged 12 points per game and 7 rebounds. Ethan is a 6'9", prototypical modern-day four-man with a combination of size, athleticism, shooting, versatility. He can really do it all and is just a hyper athlete. I think he'll be able to carve out a productive role in this Comets side that is stacked with scorers, as he really cuts off the ball well and doesn't need the ball in his hands too much to be effective. He also fits into multiple offensive structures and sets, which is something we saw at Nationals on another team that was packed with a lot of talent. Martin-Coney was able to score with a low usage rate and contribute really well doing the dirty work on the boards and also defensively. Honestly, he has all the tools to be a superstar in a similar mold to a player like Ahmed Barba-Bey from COE, who some people might remember, who's now in college. Got that skill set to be a long, athletic, versatile four, which I think the game is really favouring at the moment. Things are shaping up relatively well for the Sydney Comets women's program. A lot of talent up and down their roster. But of course, there's 2 players missing from this. Abby Curtin, we've just found out, has signed with the Sutherland Sharks. So hopefully we'll get to that in the Sharks video. And Piper Anderson still is a bit of a question mark whether she will come back to the Sydney Comets or not. Of course, at the moment, Piper Anderson just coming off a WNBL championship with the Townsville Fire. So congratulations to Piper. But not too sure what she's going to do, whether she's going to stay up there in NBL1 North or come back down to NBL1 East. Either way, would love to see Piper back in the East, but not too sure what's going to happen there. But speaking of the Townsville Fire, assistant coach Miles Bench has also just won the championship with the side, and he will be returning this year to guide a relatively young roster that looks like it's quite up and coming. Of course, Miles made some good progress with the squad last season, just missing out on the playoffs, but They were right on the precipice of making it all season long. So we've managed to piece the roster together a bit based on announcements and some social media content we've seen. But of course, their biggest signing so far is bringing back Michaela Perini. And I think that's huge for the Sydney Comets to have that veteran point guard. I'm really glad to see Michaela Perini hanging around the East and sticking around Alexandria for another year in that Comets system. I think she's really going to go to another level this season. Last season, she averaged 8 points, 4 assists, and 3 rebounds. Outside of the stats, though, Michaela Perini provides a much-needed veteran presence for what is quite a young squad. I mean, this season will mark her 14th season at the NBL1 level, or the equivalent of. She debuted in the State Basketball League with Willetton in WA back in 2012, before going on to play WNBL for the Adelaide Lightning and Perth Lynx, as well as a bunch of NBL1 sides over in WA, including the Lakeside Lightning, Perth Redbacks, and the Joondalup Wolves. But back to New South Wales, she is a great sharpshooter who can get them up in a hurry. For the Comets this season, I think a big focus should be how to get Michaela Perini more shots. I think last year maybe got burdened a little too much with having to run the offense. But I think if you could get her off ball a little more, we could really see her start filling it up. And I think for the Comets to be successful, trying to get Michaela Perini up to that 10-point, 15-point per game scorer, which I think she can be with her experience and her skill. And I think a big part of that is alongside Michaela Perini, young gun Elle Fletcher is back for another year, for a second year with the Sydney Comets. I could imagine instead of sharing minutes at the point guard position, Fletcher and Perini might start playing next to each other a little more. I think they're both quite versatile guards. They can play the 1 and the 2, and both of them can really shoot well. So I can imagine a situation where Fletcher takes the ball handling responsibility to get Perini off ball a little more, and vice versa, because they're both capable of doing both positions. Also, I think both of them are pretty capable defenders, so I don't think you're giving much up on that end too. But back to Elle Fletcher, she is super hard to stop when she gets her shot going. Pretty much unstoppable with that pull-up jump shot or from the three-point land. Can also get off the dribble pretty well, has a very tight dribbling package, and can get to the basket and scoop to the hoop, little floaters, that kind of game that a point guard really needs when you're maybe not the tallest player on the court. I'd not be surprised to see Elle Fletcher go to the next level next season. I think Miles Bench is a really good coaching fit for Elle Fletcher. Seems to have a lot of faith in the young guard, and I reckon 2026 could be a year that Elle Fletcher really goes to the next level and kind of announces herself on the NBL1 level. I did mention a little earlier, we have been keeping an eye on the Sydney Comets social media, and we've helped to identify a few players that may be coming in this season. One that I did ID with a little help from some anonymous sources is Lily Hospice. Now, this isn't 100% locked in. I think she's been training with the squad. There's been no announcement, but let's have a bit of fun with it. She hasn't played at the top flight since 2014, so I couldn't quite find a whole lot of information on her. But back then, in the early 2010s, she did play NCAA with Edinburgh University. She also was a New Zealand women's basketball champion in 2012. So honestly, not too sure much about her game, but the resume seems quite good and could be another guard who could be part of this rotation. And to round out the guard rotation is a young guard, Malky Hawala. Now, Malky could be a real surprise package this season. She is a Comets junior who won MVP honours in the JPL finals not that long ago, and also has represented New South Wales in her time as a junior. Looking at her highlights package, she is so quick, very agile, and has a quick dribble. That first step looks really lightning quick. She can attack off the dribble and get to the bucket fast, and also seems to have a pretty good package of floaters and layups as well. Again, just blows the defenders away on that first step and seems to be able to get its shots up in a hurry. She also likes to get out in transition using that speed as well. And I can see how this skill set would convert really well to the NBL1 level, especially that kind of run and gun style that most Comets teams like to play with. So definitely keep some tabs on Malky this year. Not too sure how heavily she's going to feature in the rotation, but definitely has all the tools to be a star in the NBL1 level. Just be interesting to see how she develops over the next coming years. To round out the guard rotation, just a quick shout out to Emily Nguyen as well. She's a super crafty, capable point guard who's originally from Canberra, but moved up to Sydney for university and has been playing in the Comets Youth League ever since, I think for about the last 2 years. She's also been playing UBL with UNSW, which is where I've actually got a chance to see her play. And she's just an out-and-out point guard, that kind of pure point guard. Really good with the playmaking, knows how to control the tempo of a game, get into those pick-and-roll situations, knows when to pass, when to attack. I think she's a really high IQ point guard. So that's the guards' depth. Now we're going to move over to the forwards and the wings position. And there's a lot of players who can give you a lot of different looks. But as we were saying at the start of this, so Alex Oliver, of course, is back at Comets lifer and a really great defender. Can play the 3 or the 4 and is just a great glue player who does all the small things right. And with Alex Oliver, it might not show up on the stat sheet. Often defense and hustle doesn't really show up on stat sheets, but you can't underestimate her game. The same could be said for Jade Yeomans as well. Actually, very similar style as Alex Oliver. One of those players who contributes to a winning culture and defensively just gets after it. So 2 really solid players to have. Both of them can play the 3 and the 4. So again, depending on who they might sign, they might even go for an import. You can have Oliver and Yeomans. Both of them can start. Both of them can give you a lot off the bench as well. So really good to have those 2 players back. Again, sleuthing through the preseason photos, it looks like Comets legend Sarika Shillingsworth is back at the Comets Superdome. Wow. After a year with the Penrith Panthers. So good to see Sarika back where it all began with the Sydney Comets. I know she's very heavily involved in not just the Comets organisation, but in the community at large down there in South Sydney. So great to see Sarika back home. I think she brings a lot to that Comets culture and another veteran presence to go along with Michaela Perini, who will lead this youngish squad. I know she does like to play AFL during the winter too, so we'll see how that works out, whether she will kind of feature as like a kind of celebrity player to come back for a few games, or whether she's playing heavy minutes, or even a situation where she's a kind of assistant coach or just a kind of, leader of this side. Regardless of what position Sarika Shillingsworth is going to be in, she's so valuable to have as part of the Sydney Comets squad. And hey, again, nothing official. We just got this from that preseason photo. Now, staying on that photo, another signing, again, unconfirmed, but I think will be playing with the team this season. And again, I'm guessing this is a Michaela Perini connection, is Erin Fisher. So Erin Fisher is out of Perth. In fact, has been playing at the top flight of the NBL1 equivalent level since 2017 when she debuted in the WA State Basketball League with the East Perth Eagles. Shout out to any Eagles fans tuning in. So came up through the Eagles system and then went to the University of Maryland, the Baltimore County campus, that is. Spent 2 seasons in NCAA before returning in 2020 to play with the East Perth Eagles again in NBL1. Looking at her stats here, she hovers around 8 to 10 points, 5 rebounds, and about 2 to 3 assists a game. And from checking out her highlights, appears to be able to play the 3 and the 4, maybe a little more comfortable in the 3 spot, being able to attack off the perimeter, but in some plays as well, gets into the post and looks to be quite effective, whether it's playmaking or creating her own shot out of the post position too. So it looks like a pretty unselfish, savvy player, can really get after rebounds as well, so a very strong and hardworking, which I think actually suits the Sydney Comets style really well with other players like Jade Yeomans and Alex Oliver were saying before. They like to do the nitty-gritty, they're unselfish players, so style-wise, it seems like Erin Fisher might be a perfect fit for the Sydney Comets. And finally, to round out the starting lineup, but definitely not at the end of the list due to skill or talent, it is the captain of the Sydney Comets, Alexandra K-Roos. We're just moving forward positionally. It's Alex K-Roos back for another season with the Sydney Comets. The Comets Junior has been such a success story going up through their youth program, their juniors program, even representing New South Wales at a junior level as well, and then graduating into the NBL1 program. First season was in 2023 with the Comets. In fact, in that debut season, she averaged 7 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and a little under 2 steals a game. And last year, she actually had a great statistical year, 9 rebounds per game, which I think is pretty indicative of the evolving style of Alex K-Roos. I think coming up, played a little more out in the perimeter, was a little more versatile, but has really grown into becoming a serviceable big. And looking at the Comets rosters over the last few years, they haven't had a whole lot of height, but I think Alex K-Roos has been a standout in the paint for them season after season.
I think on her best days as well, she can be a kind of 15 to 20 point per game style player. I'm not just saying that because I think Alex Carews in the right system can pop out and shoot the three, attack off the dribble, and even score off post-ups as well. I think it's just a matter of utilising her well, maybe running a few more sets. But either way, Alex Carews is another great complementary piece to a kind of star-studded lineup. Would love to see them run Carews and Perini in the pick and roll situation, or with Fletcher as well, because I think for that pick and pop or that pick and roll situation, that's where Carews could be most effective. So you got a feeling she's going to round out that starting five in either the 4 spot or the 5 spot. So heading back to the depth chart, let's have a look at their full roster just one more time. Michaela Perini and Elle Fletcher, I think, got the starting guard spots. That 3 spot's really up for grabs. I could see Fisher or Oliver just slotting in there. Even Malky, if depends how she converts to the NBL1 level. I think Carews has definitely gotten the start as well. But 2 more players that I do want to give a shout out to.
2 stars, it's Kirsty Gill and Jazz Hayter.
I think these 2 could be dark horses this season. These 2 players have kind of similar play styles with that ability to step out and be a kind of stretch 4. But also get downhill and attack when needed. So Jazz joining over from Hornsby Coringa Spiders was a long-term Spider, but I think getting the opportunity she deserves with the Sydney Comets as a quick trigger, and in UBL we've seen her fill it up.
Had multiple 20-point plus games.
Got a very reliable 3-point shot, Jazz Hayter. So if things aren't working that well for the Comets, I think you can bring Jazz off and she can just bang, 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 fill it up. And I'd be surprised to see her actually play quite a large role in this team. And as for Kirsty Gill, a long-term Comet, I think has a lot of potential to become a very good player on the NBL1 level. Has all the tools, both physically and skill-wise. The 3-point shot is becoming more and more deadly every day. And I think in the right system, Gill can really star. Looking at the depth chart here, they are down a few bigs, but I think on the NBL1 level with the Sydney Comets will probably feature as more of a 4, even maybe a 5 if you're looking to run and gun a little bit. Either way, when you look across this whole roster, there's a lot of versatility from those 3 to 5 spots. Overall, looking at the Sydney Comets women's, I think they will add an import or maybe have a few more big signings up their sleeve. But either way, with the talent they have at the moment, they could cause some serious damage. There's a lot of players who I think under Miles' bench could go to the next level. And if they can stick to a hard-nosed, high-intensity defense team and get out and run and gun, I think they could be pretty effective this year. So thank you for joining us here on Waratah VCR. I know it's been a long video, but hey, there's plenty of players to talk about and we're excited about Sydney Comets basketball in 2026. Don't forget, please, please, please like and subscribe. Do put a lot of time and effort into these videos, so would appreciate a bit of love and support. Of course, feel free to comment down below or send us a message on Instagram with your thoughts on the roster or any gossip you may have. But until next time, my name's James. Thank you for joining me on Waratah VCR.